The alarm clock buzzed at 0600 hours, just like it had for the past 5,476 days. Day-Wan opened his eyes and stared at the metal ceiling of his quarters. Another day, another meaningless rotation around a dying star that nobody cared about anymore. He pulled himself out of bed, his right leg screaming in protest. The injury from that last battle had never healed right. No proper medical equipment, no doctors, just him and his basic field training. He limped to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face. The mirror showed a man who looked older than his 38 years. Gray streaked his black hair. Deep lines carved his face. His eyes looked empty. The station groaned around him. Outpost Meridian 7 was falling apart one system at a time. Day-Wan had kept the important things running. Life support, water recycling, the automated defenses that nobody would ever trigger, because nobody knew this place existed anymore. Sometimes he wondered why he bothered. Habit, probably, or maybe he was just too stubborn to die. He dressed in his old uniform. It hung loose on his frame now. Food rations were running low, had been for years, but he rationed carefully. He could probably last another 5 years if he really tried. 5 more years of talking to ghosts and checking systems that protected nothing. The cafeteria held 15 empty chairs. Day-Wan sat in his usual spot and heated a protein bar. On the wall, photos smiled at him. His crew, his friends, all dead. He had watched them die, heard their last words over the comm system as the sovereignty ships tore through their defenses. Captain Day-Wan had given the evacuation order. Captain Day-Wan had retreated to this forgotten outpost with a handful of survivors. Captain Day-Wan had watched those survivors die one by one over the next 2 years from wounds and sickness and despair. Now it was just him. The last human for 1,000 light years in any direction, maybe the last human anywhere. Earth was gone. The colonies were destroyed. Humanity had lost the war 15 years ago. The galactic sovereignty had won. The universe moved on without his species. He finished his tasteless breakfast and began his daily rounds. Engineering first. The reactor hummed along at 60% capacity. Good enough. He checked the coolant levels and made a note in his log. Not that anyone would ever read it. Communications next. All channels silent as always. He had stopped broadcasting distress signals after year 3. Nobody was coming. Nobody cared. The observation deck was his least favorite place, but he forced himself to visit it once a week. Stars stretched in every direction, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the sovereignty ruled 47 species with an iron fist. Somewhere out there, humanity was probably just a footnote in some historical database. The species that fought back and lost everything. He was heading back to his quarters when the alarm shrieked. Day-Wan froze. That alarm hadn't sounded in 15 years. Proximity alert. Something was approaching the station. His heart hammered as he ran to the command center, leg injury forgotten. The sensors showed a small vessel on intercept course. Not a sovereignty design. Not human either. Something else entirely. The ship was damaged badly, trailing atmosphere and moving erratically. It was going to crash. Day-Wan's military training kicked in. He sealed the interior bulkheads and grabbed his pistol from the weapons locker. Could be pirates. Could be scavengers. Could be sovereignty scouts. Didn't matter. After 15 years alone, he wasn't going down without a fight. The vessel hit the docking bay with a screech of tearing metal. Alarms blared across the station. Hull breach in Sector 7, but the emergency seals held. Day-Wan moved through the corridors with his weapon raised. His leg throbbed, but he ignored it. He had trained for combat situations for 20 years before they stuck him on this rock. The muscle memory remained even if his body was failing. He reached the docking bay airlock and checked his suit seals. The bay had atmosphere now, barely breathable, filled with smoke and burning plastic. Through his helmet visor, he saw the crashed ship. It was small, maybe a scout or escape pod. Elegant lines that spoke of advanced technology. Definitely not sovereignty. They built everything like flying fortresses, brutal and efficient. The ship's hatch hissed open. Day-Wan aimed his pistol at the opening, finger on the trigger. His hands shook slightly. He steadied them. Breathe in, breathe out, just like training. A figure stumbled out of the smoke. Day-Wan's breath caught in his throat. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Scales covered her skin, shimmering like mother of pearl under the emergency lights. 2 horns curved gracefully from her forehead. Wings folded against her back, torn and bloody. She wore armor that had been breached in a dozen places. Burns covered her arms and face. She took 2 steps and collapsed. Her hand reached toward him, and she spoke in a language he had never heard before. Musical but weak, dying. Daewon lowered his weapon and stood there, frozen. This was someone else's problem. He was done playing hero. Heroes got their crews killed. Heroes watched their friends die while they ran away to hide in forgotten corners of space. He should just let nature take its course, seal the airlock and go back to his empty routine. The alien woman coughed and blood bubbled from her lips. Her eyes found his through her pain. They were gold like molten metal. Even dying, they held something he had not seen in 15 years. Hope. He cursed in Korean and moved forward. His medical kit was limited, but he had basic supplies. As he knelt beside her, she flinched and tried to pull away. He raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. She studied him with those impossible golden eyes and seemed to understand. She relaxed slightly, though whether from trust or blood loss he could not tell. Her breathing was shallow, pulse weak. Daewon had seen enough combat injuries to know she was dying. The burns alone would kill her within hours without proper treatment. He had some supplies, but nothing made for an alien physiology he did not understand. He looked at her face. Young. Maybe equivalent to early 20s in human terms. She had fought hard before crashing here. She had survived something terrible to make it this far. Just like him, Daewon made his decision. He had been dead for 15 years, just breathing out of habit. Maybe it was time to actually live again, or at least try. He lifted her carefully and began the long walk to the medical bay. She was heavier than she looked, her scales like flexible armor. Her wings dragged along the floor, leaving a trail of blood. She whispered something in her language over and over like a prayer or a promise. Whatever happened next, his isolation was over. For better or worse, the universe had found him again. The medical bay smelled like dust and old chemicals. Daewon had not used most of this equipment in over a decade. He laid the alien woman on the examination table as carefully as he could. Her breathing grew more shallow with each passing minute. He needed to work fast. He cut away her damaged armor with medical shears. The burns underneath made him wince, 2nd and 3rd degree across 40% of her body. The scales had protected her somewhat, but the edges where they met flesh were angry and infected. He cleaned the wounds with antiseptic, working by instinct and old training. Her body jerked with pain, but she did not wake. The worst injury was a deep gash across her ribs. Daewon could see bone through the torn scales. He irrigated the wound and began suturing. His hands remembered the motions even if his mind felt rusty. In the military, every officer learned basic battlefield medicine. You never knew when you would be the only thing standing between your crew and death. He had failed his crew. But maybe he could save this stranger. 3 hours later, he had done everything he could. Burns bandaged, wounds closed. Dye drip attached to her arm to replace lost fluids. He had used human saline solution and hoped her biology was compatible enough. If not, well, she was dying anyway. At least he tried. Daewon sat in a chair next to the table and watched her breathe. Exhaustion pulled at him. His leg throbbed from standing so long. He closed his eyes for just a moment. A crash jolted him awake. The alien woman was on her feet, or trying to be. She had ripped the IV from her arm and grabbed a medical tray as a weapon. Her golden eyes blazed with fear and fury. She spoke rapidly in her language, words tumbling over each other. She was asking questions, making demands. He could hear it in her tone even if he understood nothing. Daewon raised his hand slowly and spoke in Korean. Easy, you are safe. I am not your enemy. She did not understand. Of course she did not. She backed toward the wall, wings spread despite the obvious pain. She was preparing to fight. Wounded, weak, and she still had fight in her. Daewon felt something like respect. He reached very slowly for his tablet on the nearby counter. Her eyes tracked his every movement. He tapped the screen and activated the translation program. It was old, probably outdated, and the AI had been damaged in a power surge 5 years ago. But it was better than nothing. The computer hummed to life. Daewon spoke clearly into it. My name is Daewon. I found you crashed in my docking bay. You were dying. I gave you medical treatment. I am human. Do you understand? The tablet speakers crackled. Strange words came out in her language, mechanical and broken. The woman froze. Her eyes widened. She spoke again, slower this time. The tablet translated in a flat, emotionless voice. Human? Impossible. Humans are extinct. The sovereignty killed them all. Day One felt cold. He had suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. Not all. I survived. This station is forgotten, hidden. I have been alone here for 15 years. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she lowered the medical tray slowly. She swayed on her feet and Day One moved to catch her. She flinched but let him guide her back to the table. She sat heavily, breathing hard. My name is Hana, she said through the translator. I am Kalith. My people were enslaved by the sovereignty 300 years ago. I escaped from a prison transport ship. They hurt me badly. I flew until my ship could fly no more. I did not know where I was going. Just away, Day One pulled up a chair. His leg thanked him.
Why did they imprison you?
What did you do? Hana looked at her scaled hands. Even through the translator's flat voice, he heard the pain. I killed a guard who was beating a child. A human child. The room went silent. Day One felt his heart stop. Human? You said we were extinct. Most are. Hana met his eyes. But the sovereignty keeps some alive. As slaves, as experiments, as entertainment. I worked in the slave processing center for 5 years. I saw many species. Humans were rare. Special prisoners. They kept them separate from others. Why? The word came out harsh. Hana's wings shifted. Because humans are dangerous. Even as slaves, even broken and beaten, humans plan escapes. They fight back. They inspire other slaves to resist. The sovereignty fears humans more than any species they ever conquered. That is why they tried so hard to exterminate your kind. Day One sat back. Pride and horror warred in his chest. His people had kept fighting even in chains. But at what cost? The child, he said quietly. What happened? I helped him escape during the confusion when I attacked the guard. There was a human woman in the next cell. She took the boy and ran. I stayed to fight to give them time. That is when they caught me. That is when they decided I was too dangerous to keep as a worker. They were taking me to an execution facility when I broke free. You sacrificed yourself for strangers. Hana nodded. My grandmother told me stories. Stories from before my people were enslaved. She said humans once helped a Kalith colony escape an attack by raiders. The humans held the line and died so my people could run. She said humans were the only species who would die for others without asking for payment. I wanted to know if the stories were true. Day One thought about his crew. They had died holding the line so civilian transports could escape. He had always thought of himself as a coward for surviving, but maybe survival was not cowardice. Maybe bearing witness mattered too. The stories are true, he said. We are stupid like that. Hana made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then her expression grew serious. Day One. Before I escaped, I stole something from the ship's computer. Coordinates. Locations of hidden enclaves where survivors of destroyed species are hiding. One of those coordinates is for a human settlement. A place called New Sol. 200,000 humans live there hiding from the sovereignty. Day One stood up so fast his chair fell over. 200,000? Where? I will show you. But first you must know something else. The sovereignty tracked my escape. They know I took the data. They will follow my ship's trail. They will find this station. Hana looked at him steadily. We have maybe 2 days before they arrive. Maybe less. The hope that had flared in Day One's chest turned cold. 200,000 humans alive. His species survived, and he had just led the sovereignty right to them by saving this woman. No, he stopped that thought. He would not regret saving a life. That path led to darkness. Instead, he needed to think. 15 years alone had made him forget how to plan, how to strategize. But the skills were still there, buried under grief and isolation. How many ships? He asked. I saw 3 patrol cruisers change course to follow me before I jumped to hyperspace. Maybe more by now. 3 cruisers. Day One's mind raced. 3 cruisers meant roughly 200 soldiers. Advanced weapons. Shield technology. Against 1 broken human and 1 wounded Kalith on a falling-apart station. The odds were impossible. But when had that ever stopped humanity? He met Hana's golden eyes and saw his own determination reflected there. 2 survivors who refused to give up. Maybe that was enough. This station is not just a research outpost, Day One said. It is a weapons cache. We have been sitting on some of humanity's most advanced technology, hidden and waiting. I do not know if any of it still works. But if the sovereignty wants a fight, we can give them one. Hana's wings spread slightly. In her culture, it might have meant hope, or maybe anticipation of battle. Then we fight? Then we fight, Daewon agreed. And after we win, you are going to take me to New Seoul. I want to see my people again. For the first time in 15 years, Captain Daewon felt alive. Daewon led Hana deep into the station's lower levels, places he had not visited in years. His leg complained with each step down the metal stairs, but he pushed through the pain. Behind him, Hana moved carefully. Her wounds were still fresh. The bandages under her torn clothing showed spots of blood, but she did not complain. Dragons, Daewon was learning, did not complain. How big is this station? Hana asked. Her voice no longer needed the translator for simple words. She was learning Korean quickly, mixing it with her own language. Daewon found himself understanding her broken sentences better than the machine's flat translation. Bigger than it looks, he replied. Most of the structure is underground, built into the asteroid. 30 levels total. I have been living in the upper 5. The rest have been sealed for 15 years. They reached a heavy blast door marked with faded human military symbols. Daewon pressed his hand to the security panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door groaned and began to slide open. Lights flickered on in the chamber beyond. Hana inhaled sharply. The room stretched the size of a football field. Rows and rows of equipment filled the space. Weapons, ships, technology that gleamed even under a decade and a half of dust. This is not a research station, she whispered. It is. Now, Daewon walked into the armory. His boots echoed on the metal floor. During the war, this was a development facility. We designed new weapons here, tested them. When Earth fell, the scientists sent everything valuable here and scattered. The sovereignty never found this place. Too remote, too unimportant. Just another dead rock orbiting a dying star. He moved through the rows, checking labels and inventory numbers. Most of the equipment was still in storage pods. Some systems showed power. Others were dark. He would need time to assess what still worked. Hana stopped at a large cylindrical device. Strange symbols marked its surface. What is this? Stellar Forge Drive. Prototype faster than light engine. It can outrun any sovereignty ship by a factor of 10. Daewon checked the control panel. Inactive but undamaged. Only one problem. It requires 2 pilots with perfect neural synchronization. The processing power needed is too much for one human brain. We lost 3 test pilots before we figured that out. Neural synchronization. Hana touched the device carefully. My people have something similar. Dragons share consciousness during flight formations. It is how we coordinate in battle without speaking. Daewon felt hope stir. Could you synchronize with a human? I do not know. It has never been tried. Our biologies are different. Hana looked at him. But if the alternative is death, I am willing to attempt it. They spent the next hours taking inventory. Daewon's mind worked through possibilities and plans. The station had defensive weapons, railguns, quantum mines, energy shields that might still function. And in the back corner, sealed in its own chamber, was the weapon his team had called Prometheus Rain. Daewon had been against testing it. Too unstable, too dangerous. Now it might be their only chance. He explained the plan to Hana over a meal of reheated rations. She ate slowly, her body still recovering, but her eyes were sharp. We used the mines to create a debris field, Daewon said. Force them to slow down and navigate carefully. That gives us time to power up the railguns. We target their engines first, make them unable to chase us. Then we activate Prometheus Rain. It will drain our reactor completely, but if it works, it will disable their shields and weapons. And if it does not work? Hana asked. Then we die. But we die fighting and we take them with us. Daewon met her eyes. I will understand if you want to run. Take an escape pod. I can give you coordinates for the nearest neutral system. Hana's wings rustled. My grandmother told me another story about humans. She said when humans choose to stand beside you, they do not run. Ever. Even at the end. She reached across the table and put her scaled hand over his. If you stand, I stand. That is what it means to be bonded. Bonded? Daewon felt the warmth of her hand. Strange that he had been alone so long. And now this alien warrior felt more like family than anyone had in years. When dragons fight beside someone, truly fight, not just as allies, but as one mind and heart, we become bonded. It is permanent. Our spirits connect. Hana squeezed his hand gently. I felt it when you saved me. When you could have let me die but chose not to. And I feel it now. You are my bond brother, Daewon. Until the stars go dark. He did not know what to say to that, so he just squeezed back and nodded. They worked through the night. Day one had not worked this hard in years. His body protested, but his mind felt clearer than it had since the war ended. Purpose. He had purpose again. Hana worked beside him, learning human technology with remarkable speed. She asked good questions. Her hands, despite the scales and claws, were gentle with delicate equipment. During a break, she taught him some Kalith combat movements. His leg limited him, but she showed him techniques that worked around the injury. Ways to turn weakness into strength. He found himself laughing as he stumbled through a spinning kick. When had he last laughed? "You fight like a baby dragon," Hana teased. Her Korean was getting better. All determination, no grace. Baby dragons probably do not have shattered femurs, Day one shot back. She grew serious. How did it happen? The injury. He had not talked about that day in 15 years, but somehow with her the words came easier. The final battle. We were covering the evacuation of civilian transports. The sovereignty broke through our lines. Explosion took out half my squad. Shrapnel went through my leg. My second-in-command, Lieutenant Yoonji, she dragged me to the escape shuttle. She was going to come with me. But then we saw more civilians trapped in a collapsed corridor. She put me in the shuttle and went back for them. Day one's voice caught. I ordered her to come back. I screamed at her, but she just smiled and closed the hatch. I watched through the window as she led those civilians toward another escape route. Then the station exploded. I survived because she chose to save others instead of herself. Hana said nothing for a moment. Then she spoke softly. She sounds like she was very human. The best of us, Daewon agreed. They returned to work. 20 hours until the sovereignty arrived. Maybe less. They powered up what systems they could. Daewon programmed the mines with approach vectors. Hana calibrated the railguns. Together, they worked on the neural interface for the Stellar Forge drive. If everything went wrong, if they could not hold the station, they would need to run. And running would require the impossible synchronization between two different species who had just met. 10 hours left. The long-range sensors picked up the first traces. 3 ships, just as Hana predicted. Moving fast. They would arrive sooner than expected. Maybe 6 hours now. Daewon and Hana sat in the command center watching the sensor data. She had changed into human clothing, a spare uniform that fit her reasonably well despite the wings. He had given her his old lieutenant's jacket. She wore it with pride. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Terrified," Daewon admitted. "You? Same." Hana's wings rustled, but also excited. "I have been running for so long. It will feel good to face them. Humans have a saying. We probably stole it from someone else. We do that a lot. It goes, the best defense is a good offense." Hana smiled, showing sharp dragon teeth. Kalith have a similar saying. It translates roughly to, "When the hunter comes for you, become the hunter." Daewon smiled back. "I think our peoples would have been good friends. If the universe had been kinder. Maybe we still can be. After." Hana stood and stretched her wings. "Now teach me more about these weapons. If we are going to make the sovereignty regret finding us, I want to know exactly how." They worked until the alarms sounded. 4 hours early. The sovereignty ships had arrived. 6 ships appeared on the sensors. Not 3, 6. Daewon felt his stomach drop. He had planned for 3 cruisers with 200 soldiers total. This was double that. 400 trained sovereignty troops against 1 broken human and 1 wounded dragon. "They brought friends," Hana said quietly. She stood beside him in the command center, her golden eyes fixed on the tactical display. "We need to run." Daewon's military training screamed at him. Bad odds could be overcome. Impossible odds were just suicide. "Get to the Stellar Forge ship. Try the neural sync. Even if it fails, a normal jump is better than staying here." "No." Daewon turned to her. "No." Hana's wings spread wide. "I have run enough. My whole life has been running. Running from the sovereignty. Running from slave catchers. Running from who I could have been if my people were free. I'm done running, Daewon. If I die today, I die fighting. I die free." Something in her words struck deep. Daewon had run too. Run from his guilt. Run from his grief. Run from the universe itself. He had spent 15 years in this tomb, calling it survival, but really it was just a slower death. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to remember what it meant to be human. "Okay," he said. "We fight, but we fight smart. We make every shot count. We make them regret ever following you here. Hana's smile was fierce. Now you sound like a warrior. They had 30 minutes before the Sovereignty fleet reached weapons range. Day One used every second. He deployed the quantum mines in a scattered pattern around the station. Not a straight line they could see and avoid. A chaotic cloud that would look like normal debris until too late. He powered up the railguns and set them to auto-target, charged the energy shields to maximum, praying they would hold. And he activated Prometheus Rain. The weapon hummed to life after 15 years of sleep. Its charging sequence would take 20 minutes. 20 minutes they might not have. Hana took position at the gunnery station. Day One had given her a crash course in human weapon systems. She learned faster than anyone he had ever trained. Her dragon reflexes made her a natural. He almost felt sorry for the Sovereignty. Almost. Incoming transmission, the computer announced. Day One accepted it. A face appeared on the screen. Reptilian features, cold eyes. Commander Vextar, according to the rank insignia. A Scoreth, one of the Sovereignty's most ruthless species. Attention, human vessel. Vextar said in perfect galactic standard. You harbor a criminal and stolen property. Surrender the Caliph named Hana and we will allow you to live. You have 5 minutes to comply. Day One almost laughed. Allow him to live? As if the Sovereignty had ever let a human live when they could kill instead. He thought about Earth burning, about colonies destroyed, about his crew dying while he ran away. He opened a channel, not just to Vextar, to all 6 ships, to every soldier listening. He wanted them all to hear this. Commander Vextar, my name is Captain Day One of the Human Defense Force. You are in violation of this station's sovereign space. You have 5 minutes to turn around and leave. If you do not, I will consider it an act of war. And let me be very clear about something. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then he smiled. Humanity does not negotiate with slavers. We end them. Vextar's expression did not change. Brave words from a dead species. You are 1 human on a broken station. We are 6 warships with 400 soldiers. Your choice is simple. Die quickly or die slowly. You forgot option 3, Day One said. We kill you and take your ships. See you soon, Commander. He cut the transmission. Hana was staring at him with something like wonder. That was very stupid, she said. Very human, Day One corrected. Now let's back up those words. Mines are active. Shields are up. Prometheus Rain is at 60% charge. When they get close, you take out their targeting sensors. Make them shoot blind. I will handle the engines. The Sovereignty ships advanced in formation. Professional, efficient. They had done this 1,000 times before. Crushed rebels and escaped slaves and anyone who dared stand against them. They expected this to be easy. They were wrong. The first ship hit a quantum mine. The explosion was beautiful. A cascade of blue-white energy that collapsed the vessel's shields and disabled its forward weapons. Before they could react, Day One fired the railguns, magnetically accelerated tungsten rods traveling at a fraction of light speed. They punched through the weakened shields and tore into the ship's engine core. The cruiser went dark and began to drift. First blood, Hana said. She fired the secondary cannons at the next ship's sensor array. Her aim was perfect. The vessel's targeting systems went offline, but the Sovereignty adapted fast. The remaining 5 ships spread out and began a bombardment pattern. Energy weapons hammered the station's shields. Day One watched the power levels drop. They could take maybe 5 more minutes of this before the shields collapsed. Prometheus Rain at 80%, the computer announced. Day One deployed more mines. Bought them another minute as the ships maneuvered. Hana kept firing, her movements becoming more fluid as she learned the systems. She was not just defending. She was hunting. 2 more ships lost sensors. 1 lost its primary weapons array, but it was not enough. The Sovereignty had numbers and firepower. A missile struck the station's hull. Alarms blared. Hull breach on level 12. Another hit. Level 15. They were taking damage faster than the automated systems could seal the breaches. 90% charge, the computer said. A 3rd ship lined up a shot on the station's reactor. Day One saw it coming but had no way to stop it. If that hit landed, they were done. Game over. Hana made a sound deep in her throat. Not fear, rage. She stood from the gunnery station and ran toward the docking bay. What are you doing? Day One shouted after her, buying time. Keep charging that weapon. He wanted to stop her, but there was no time. The Sovereignty ships were pressing their advantage. He had to focus on the battle, on keeping them alive long enough for Prometheus Rain to reach full power. Through the external cameras, he saw Hana reach the docking bay. She had brought one of the old human fighter craft online. Impossible. She barely knew how to fly human ships, but she launched anyway, her fighter streaking out into space. She flew like nothing Daewon had ever seen. Pure instinct and dragon grace translated into machine form. She wove between sovereignty fire, drawing their attention, making herself a target. One ship broke formation to chase her, then another. "You beautiful crazy dragon," Daewon whispered. 100% charge, the computer announced. Prometheus Rain ready to fire. Daewon armed the weapon. His finger hovered over the firing control. This would drain everything. If it did not work, they had no backup plan. But watching Hana dance through weapons fire that should have killed her 10 times over, he knew she had given everything. He could do no less. He fired. Prometheus Rain lived up to its name. Energy cascaded from the station in waves of golden fire. It washed over the sovereignty ships like a tide. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapons went offline. Their engines sputtered. For 30 seconds, the entire enemy fleet was helpless. 30 seconds was all Daewon needed. He fired everything. Every railgun. Every remaining missile. Every weapon system that still had power. The second sovereignty ship exploded. The third lost its entire port side and began to break apart. Hana's fighter streaked toward the flagship. The one Vextar commanded. She was not running. She was attacking. Alone against a cruiser that still had some weapons online. Suicidal. "Hana, no!" Daewon screamed into the comm. She did not answer. Her fighter accelerated beyond what human technology should allow. Then Daewon understood. She had activated the Stellar Forge drive. Without a neural link. Without a co-pilot. The processing load would burn out her brain, but it gave her the speed she needed. Her fighter phased through normal space, through the Sovereignty flagship's hull, through its shields and armor like they were not there. She appeared inside the ship's reactor core, and she detonated her fighter's power core. The flagship exploded from within, a chain reaction that consumed the vessel in seconds. Debris scattered like dying stars. Daewon could not breathe, could not move. Hana was gone. She had sacrificed herself for him, for a human she had known for 2 days. Then the comm crackled. "Daewon? Are you crying? We won, you stupid human." "Why crying?" He looked at the sensors. A small escape pod, barely functioning, ejecting from the explosion. Life signs inside. "Faint but there, I am not crying," he lied, wiping his eyes. "Just dust. Come home, Hana, come home." The remaining 2 sovereignty ships turned and fled. They had seen enough. Seen what happened when humanity stopped running. Daewon guided Hana's escape pod into the docking bay. The station was dying around him. Too much damage. Reactor failing. They had minutes at best. He pulled Hana from the pod. She was unconscious, bleeding from her nose and ears. The neural strain had nearly killed her. But she was alive. They were both alive. And 200,000 humans were waiting at New Sol. He had coordinates. He had a ship. He had hope. Daewon carried Hana to the Stellar Forge vessel. Loaded her gently into the co-pilot seat. Strapped himself in. The station exploded behind them as they launched, lighting the void with fire. They were alive. Against all odds, together. Now came the hard part. Finding home. 3 weeks drifting through empty space. 3 weeks of fear and hope and silence. Daewon kept the ship's systems running on minimal power. Kept Hana alive with rationed medical supplies and prayers to gods he did not believe in. The Stellar Forge drive sat dark and useless without the neural synchronization they could not risk attempting again. Hana woke on the 22nd day. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around the small cabin. Her gaze found Daewon sitting beside her, monitoring her vital signs. He had not slept properly in days. "You look terrible," she said. Her voice was weak but held humor. "You look like you tried to fly through a star," Daewon replied. "Which, if I remember correctly, is basically what you did. Using experimental technology without training. While wounded, are all dragons this stupid? Only the best ones." Hana tried to sit up and winced. "The coordinates. Did I damage them?" Daewon's face fell. "The neural burn scrambled some of your memory engrams. The data you stole is corrupted. I have been trying to reconstruct it, but without a full understanding of K-Leth neural encoding, I am basically guessing." Hana closed her eyes. "So we are lost, not entirely. I have been scanning all frequencies for any signal. Human, Calith, anything. This morning I picked something up. Old human military encryption. Very old, pre-war coding. Someone out here is broadcasting on frequencies only humans would know. Hope sparked in Hana's golden eyes. Where? 3 days travel at standard speed. An asteroid field designated as Sector R449. Nothing on any official charts, but someone is there. They used those 3 days to heal. Day 1 forced himself to rest properly. Hana practiced moving around the small ship, rebuilding her strength. They shared stories to pass the time. She told him about Calith culture before the slavery, art and music and dragon flights that painted the sky. He told her about Earth, oceans and mountains and cities full of millions of humans just living their lives. I wish I could have seen it, Hana said. I wish you could have too, Day 1 replied. The asteroid field appeared on sensors exactly where the signal originated, dangerous to navigate, thousands of rocks tumbling through space in chaotic patterns. But Day 1 had been flying since he was 16. He wove between asteroids like threading a needle. Hana watched with admiration. You are good at this, she said. I had a good teacher. My father was a pilot. He used to take me through the asteroid belts near Mars for fun. My mother thought he was crazy. She was probably right. The signal grew stronger, deeper into the field. Then Day 1 saw it. Hidden in the shadow of the largest asteroid, a structure, not natural, built a station, smaller than Meridian 7 but clearly inhabited. Docking bays, power signatures, life support. Someone is definitely home, Day 1 murmured. A new voice crackled over the comm. Speaking Korean, unknown vessel, you are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or we will open fire. Day 1 felt his heart race. Human. A human voice. This is Captain Day 1, formerly of the Human Defense Force, service number 77249. I am human. I have a Calith ally named Hana with me. We are looking for other survivors. Silence. Long enough that Day 1 worried they would actually shoot. Then the voice came back, different now, emotional. Captain Day 1, stand by for docking clearance, and welcome home. The station was called Haven 3. Day 1 learned it was part of a network, secret stations scattered across uncharted space, an underground railroad for refugees and escaped slaves. Dozens of species lived here together. Humans, Calith, and others Day 1 did not recognize, all hiding from the sovereignty, all helping each other survive. An elderly woman met them at the airlock. Human. Gray hair pulled back. Face weathered by years but eyes sharp and kind. She wore simple clothing but carried herself with authority. Captain Day 1, she said. I am Malsoon. I run this station. We thought all the military personnel died in the war. It is good to see we were wrong. Day 1 saluted by instinct. Malsoon smiled and waved it away. No need for that here. We are beyond military protocols. Come. You both look like you need real food and rest. The station's cafeteria was full of people. Humans eating with aliens like it was the most natural thing in the world. Children playing together. Different species mixing without fear. Day 1 felt tears threatening. This was what humanity had fought for. Not just survival. Community. An older Calith woman approached their table. Her scales were faded with age. Her wings showed old scars, but her eyes held the same gold as Hana's. Grandmother? Hana stood so fast she nearly knocked over her chair. Hana! The old dragon pulled her granddaughter into an embrace. Wings wrapping around wings. Day 1 looked away to give them privacy. After the reunion, they gathered in Malsoon's office. The old woman listened as they told their story. The outpost. The battle. The escape. When they finished, Malsoon sat back in her chair. You did well, she said simply. Both of you. Taking down 4 sovereignty ships with basically nothing. The rumors will spread. The sovereignty is already talking about it. They do not like losing. The coordinates Hana stole, Day 1 said. New Soul, is it real? Very real. Malsoon pulled up a star chart. She pointed to a system deep in uncharted territory. 200,000 humans. Growing every year as we find more survivors. But it is just one colony. There are 5 others. Total human population across all hidden settlements is approximately 1.2 million. Day 1 felt dizzy. Over 1 million humans. His species had survived. More than survived. Endured. We are organizing, Malsoon continued. Building a resistance fleet. Slowly. Carefully. In another 10 years, maybe 15, we will be strong enough to challenge the sovereignty, to free the enslaved species, to take back what they stole from us. 10 years, Day One repeated. People are suffering now. Being tortured, enslaved, we have the numbers to fight. Numbers without ships are just more casualties. Malsoon's voice was gentle but firm. I know you want to act. But we must be patient, Hana spoke up. My people do not have 10 years. The Caliph rebellion is dying. The sovereignty is hunting us systematically. We need help now. Bora, Hana's grandmother, nodded sadly. She is right. Our resistance is down to maybe 30,000 fighters scattered across a dozen worlds. We are losing. Malsoon looked troubled. I understand. But we cannot risk exposing our settlements for one species. I am sorry. It sounds cruel. But we must think of survival first. Daewon felt anger rising. This was what had happened before. Species ignoring each other, suffering until it was too late, until the sovereignty had picked them off one by one. No, he said quietly. Excuse me? Malsoon raised an eyebrow. I said no. I will not stand by while people suffer just because it is more convenient. That is what the sovereignty wants. For us to be divided, scared, hiding. Daewon stood. I spent 15 years hiding. I am done. If you will not help the Caliph, then Hana and I will go alone. Daewon... Malsoon started. My ship has weapons, technology, the stellar forge drive. Hana and I nearly synced during her desperate attempt. We can try again properly this time. With training. One ship with that kind of speed could disrupt sovereignty supply lines. Free prisoners. Inspire others to fight. Malsoon studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. You remind me of the best humans I knew during the war. The ones who would not give up, even when everything seemed lost. The ones who dragged the rest of us forward through sheer stubborn will. She turned to her console and pulled up more files. I cannot officially support a rogue mission. But personally, I might know where some weapons shipments are going missing. I might have intelligence on sovereignty movements that could be useful. And I might introduce you to others who feel the same way you do. Daewon felt hope rising again. Others? You are not the only humans who want to fight now rather than wait. And the Caliph have been asking for alliance for months. We have been turning them down because Command thinks it is too risky. Malsoon's smile turned fierce. But Command is not here, I am. And I say some things are worth the risk. Over the next weeks, Daewon and Hana trained. The neural synchronization process was difficult and painful. Connecting two different species' consciousness was not natural. Their minds resisted, but slowly with practice and determination they began to merge, to think as one, to move as one. During their fifth attempt, something clicked. Daewon suddenly felt what Hana felt, her determination, her fear, her love for her people, and she felt him, his guilt, his hope, his growing bond with her that went deeper than friendship. It is working, Hana whispered. I can feel you. All of you. I feel you too, Daewon replied. You're very loud in my head, she laughed. Dragons are always loud. Malsoon provided them with intelligence. A sovereignty prison moon called Kaldros 9. It held 10,000 prisoners of multiple species, including humans, including one prisoner designated Asset K782, a young man, skilled with technology, captured 15 years ago during the Earth evacuation. Malsoon showed Daewon the file. It included a photo, older, scarred, but unmistakable. Taemin, Daewon breathed. His son, his boy, alive. A slave for 15 years, but alive. We can reach Kaldros 9 in 4 days with the Stellar Forge drive. Malsoon said quietly. It is heavily guarded. Probably suicide. But if you want to try... We try, Hana interrupted. She put her hand on Daewon's shoulder. We try, and we bring him home. Daewon looked at his new family. This for the team assembled in Haven 3's briefing room. 8 beings from 4 different species, all volunteers, all knowing this mission might be their last. Daewon and Hana stood at the front. Behind them, a holographic display showed the prison moon Kaldros 9, a massive facility built into a barren rock. Guard towers, defense platforms, a fleet of 6 patrol ships in constant orbit. This is insane, said Gite. He was human, maybe 30 years old. Scars covered his arms from explosives work. He had been a demolition expert before the war. Now he built bombs for the resistance. 10,000 prisoners. 200 guards. Automated defense systems. We are 8 people. 9, corrected Yuna. She was Kalith, younger than Hana. Her scales were dark blue, almost black. She specialized in stealth operations. I count as at least 2 people. That got a few nervous laughs. Good. They needed the tension broken. Daewon continued the briefing. The plan is simple. We disguise our ship as a sovereignty slave transport. Malsoon's people forged the authorization codes. We dock during shift change when security is most relaxed. Kite plants explosives on the power core. Set to timer, 30 minutes. That gives us time to find my son and any other high-value prisoners we can reach. And then, asked one of the alien volunteers. A small reptilian species called Vrel. He had been a prisoner himself before escaping. Then we trigger a prison riot, Hana said. We cannot save everyone, but we can give them a chance to save themselves. We open cells, disable guard weapons, create chaos. In the confusion, we extract our targets and run. The riot will be suicide for most of those prisoners, Gitai said quietly. The sovereignty will kill them. They are already being killed, Daewon replied. Slowly, through torture and labor and despair. At least this way they die fighting, free for a few minutes. That is more than they have now. The room went silent. Everyone understood. This was not a clean mission. People would die. Maybe all of them. But sometimes the right choice was not the safe one. They spent 2 days preparing. Daewon and Hana practiced the neural sync until they could maintain it for hours. Their minds moved together like a dance. He would think of a maneuver and she would already be adjusting their flight path. She would feel danger and he would activate shields before the threat appeared. We are getting good at this, Hana said during a break. They sat in the ship's small cabin eating ration bars. Too good, Daewon replied. I am starting to forget where my thoughts end and yours begin. Is that bad? He considered. No, just strange. I have been alone in my head for so long. Having company is nice, even if that company criticizes my flying. I do not criticize. I merely suggest improvements. That is literally what criticism means. Hana grinned. Her smiles had become more frequent, less guarded. Daewon realized she was healing, not just physically, but emotionally. Being around her own people and humans who treated her as an equal rather than a slave was changing her. On the 3rd day, a man named Hyunwoo arrived at Haven 3. He was sovereignty military. A defector. He looked nervous meeting the resistance leaders, but his information was solid. He knew Kaldros 9's security protocols. Guard rotations, weak points in the defense grid. Why are you helping us? Daewon asked him directly. Hyunwoo met his eyes. Because I have been watching the sovereignty for 20 years. Watching them commit atrocities in the name of order. I joined because I believed in peace, in uniting the galaxy. But what we built is not peace. It is tyranny, and tyranny must be opposed. Pretty words, Gite muttered. How do we know you are not a spy? You do not, Hyunwoo admitted. But I have already burned my bridges. I gave you classified information. If the sovereignty catches me, I die. Slowly. So believe me or do not. But I am committed now. Daewon decided to trust him. Maybe it was foolish. But the mission was already impossible. One more risk would not change much. They launched on the 4th day. 8 fighters and 1 transport ship. The transport held Daewon, Hana, Gite, and Yuna. The fighters would stay hidden nearby until the riot started. Then they would attack the orbital defenses, creating a distraction. The journey to Kaldros 9 took 6 hours at standard speed. They could have used the Stellar Forge drive, but that would draw too much attention. Better to approach slowly, like just another slave shipment. As they got closer, Daewon felt his heart rate increasing. His son was down there, after 15 years. What would Taemin think of his father? Would he even recognize him? Would he hate him for surviving when so many died? Hana felt his anxiety through their bond. She reached over and squeezed his hand. He will be proud of you. Any son would be. I let the sovereignty take him. I should have fought harder. Should have died. Hana interrupted. And then who would have saved me? Who would have destroyed those sovereignty ships? Who would be here now to free him? Stop thinking about what you should have done. Think about what you are doing now. That is what matters. She was right. Daewon squeezed back and focused on the mission. They approached Kaldros 9's docking bay. Hyunwoo's codes worked. The automated systems cleared them for landing. No challenges. No suspicions. So far, so good. The bay was massive. Dozens of ships lined up, transports, patrol vessels, everything marked with sovereignty symbols. Day-Wan felt sick looking at them. How many beings had these ships carried to slavery and death? They disembarked wearing stolen sovereignty uniforms. Hana had disguised her wings and horns with a long coat and helmet. Not perfect, but good enough in dim lighting. Gite carried his explosives in a maintenance kit. Yuna moved like a shadow, already scouting ahead. The prison interior was as bad as Day-Wan feared. Gray walls, harsh lighting, the smell of unwashed bodies and despair. Guards walked in pairs, heavily armed. Automated turrets tracked movement. This place was designed to break spirits before bodies. They split up. Gite headed for the power core. Yuna went to the cell block control room. Day-Wan and Hana moved toward the industrial section where the valuable prisoners worked. Where Taemin should be, they passed cells along the way, beings from a dozen species crammed together. Some looked up with dead eyes. Others did not bother. Day-Wan wanted to free them all right now, but that would blow the mission. He forced himself to keep walking. The industrial section was hotter. Massive reactor cores hummed, providing power for the entire facility. Prisoners worked in chains, monitored by guard bots and overseers. Day-Wan scanned faces, looking for one that might be his son. There, working on a control panel. Thin, scarred, missing his right hand, replaced with a crude prosthetic. But the face was unmistakable even under 15 years of hardship. Taemin, Day-Wan's vision blurred. His boy, his son, alive. He started forward, but Hana grabbed his arm. She was right. They needed to wait for the signal. But every second felt like torture. The guards changed shifts. Fewer watching the prisoners for a brief window. This was their moment. Hana moved first, quick and silent. She disabled a guard bot with a precise strike to its processing core. Day-Wan took out the overseer with a stolen stun weapon. Alarms immediately shrieked. So much for stealth. Time to improvise, everyone run. Day-Wan shouted in multiple languages. The guards are distracted. Run now! Some prisoners just stared. Others erupted into motion. Chaos spread through the industrial section. Gite's explosives detonated in the distance. The lights flickered as the power core went into emergency shutdown. Day-Wan ran to Taemin. The young man turned, confusion on his face. He did not recognize Day-Wan at first. Too many years. Too many changes. Then his eyes widened. Father, the word came out broken. Disbelieving. I am here, Day-Wan said. I am getting you out. I thought you were dead. They said all the military died. I thought, talk later. Run now, Taemin nodded. He grabbed a tool as a weapon and followed. Other prisoners joined them, forming a flood of desperate beings rushing toward any exit. The guards tried to contain them, but there were too many. The riot spread like wildfire. Hana led them through the chaos. Her combat training showed. She moved with lethal efficiency, taking down guards and bots. Yuna appeared from a side corridor, breathless. I opened every cell I could reach, she reported. 10,000 prisoners now loose in the facility. The guards are overwhelmed, but reinforcements are coming from the orbital ships. Then we need to leave now, Day-Wan said. They fought their way back to the docking bay. Prisoners streamed past them, some heading for ships, others just running. Guards fired wildly. The automated turrets spun in confusion, unable to target so many bodies at once. It was hell. It was chaos. It was war. Gite reached the transport first. He waved them over. They were almost there when Commander Vextar appeared. The same reptilian officer from the Outpost battle. He held a small alien child hostage, a gun to her head. Stop, Vextar commanded. Or the child dies, Day-Wan froze. Beside him, Hana tensed. Through their bond, he felt her calculating, felt her preparing. They thought together, moved together. She would go left. He would go right. On 3-1-2-3. Hana burst into motion, faster than any being her size should move. She became a blur of scales and fury. Vextar tried to track her, but she was already past him. Day-Wan fired. Not at Vextar, at his weapon. The precise shot, 6 months passed like a storm. 6 months of planning, building, and gathering forces. Day-Wan stood in the command center of New Seoul's military headquarters, looking at the largest assembled resistance fleet humanity had ever created. 250 human ships, 400 Kalith vessels, and smaller contingents from 8 other species who had secretly joined their cause. It was not enough. Not against the sovereignty's thousands of ships. But it might be enough for one mission. One desperate strike at the weapon that would end them all. Malsoon had brought the intelligence personally. The extinction array. A weapon the sovereignty had been building in secret for 3 years. Designed to sterilize entire planets, kill every living thing on a world within minutes. And the sovereignty leadership planned to test it soon. Not on an enemy world. On one of their own member species who had shown signs of rebellion. Hyunwoo, the defector, had provided the final proof. Intercepted communications, construction schedules, and one crucial detail. The weapon had a weakness. During its firing sequence realignment, a 15-minute window when its shields would drop and its core would be vulnerable. 15 minutes, Gite had said when they reviewed the plans. That is all we get. One shot. If we miss, that weapon will kill billions. Now the moment had arrived. The fleet hung in space at the edge of the target system. The extinction array orbited a black hole, using its immense gravity to power the weapon. It looked like a massive ring, kilometers across, bristling with technology humanity barely understood. And defending it, 2,000 sovereignty ships. The odds made Day One want to laugh. Then cry, then laugh again. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Just the way humanity liked it. Hana stood beside him at the tactical station. Through their neural bond, he felt her determination. Her absolute certainty that they would win because they had to win. Dragon stubbornness mixed with human refusal to surrender. All ships report ready, she said. Human fleet acknowledges. Kalith wings prepared. Support vessels in position. Day One opened a channel to the entire fleet. Over 600 ships. Thousands of beings who had chosen to stand against impossible odds. He needed to say something. Something to inspire them. Something to make this suicide mission feel like hope instead of despair. This is Captain Day One, he began. His voice carried across every ship, every fighter, every being who had volunteered for this battle. I will not lie to you. The odds are against us. Many of us will not survive the next few hours. The sovereignty has more ships, better weapons, stronger shields. By every measure, we should lose this fight before it begins. He paused, let the silence stretch, then continued. But the sovereignty does not understand something crucial. They think warfare is about numbers, about technology, about cold calculations of force and strategy. They are wrong. War is about will, about spirit, about beings who refuse to accept that slavery is inevitable, that tyranny must be endured, that freedom is a dream for others but not for them. His voice grew stronger. Humanity learned this thousands of years ago on a planet that no longer exists. We learned it in every battle we fought against overwhelming odds, and we learned it again 15 years ago when the sovereignty tried to erase us from existence. They failed. We survived. Not because we were stronger, because we refused to stop fighting. He looked at Hana. She smiled. Today we fight not just for humanity. We fight for every species that has suffered under sovereignty rule. For the Kalith who endured centuries of slavery. For the small species who were crushed simply for existing. For every being who dared to dream of freedom and was punished for that dream. Timon appeared on the screen from the engineering bay. His prosthetic hand worked rapidly on computer systems. The virus is ready, Father. When we breach their network, I can broadcast the truth to every sovereignty world simultaneously, show them what their leaders planned, turn their empire against itself. Good, Day One said. Then back to the fleet. Today the sovereignty will learn why they could never truly defeat humanity. Why they could never break the Kalith spirit. Why resistance grows in every corner of their empire no matter how hard they try to crush it. Because some things cannot be destroyed by weapons. Hope. Unity. The absolute refusal to accept injustice. He raised his hand. All ships. Engage on my mark. Fight smart. Fight hard. And if you must die, die free. Mark, go. The fleet surged forward. 2,000 sovereignty ships immediately responded. Space lit up with weapons fire. The battle began. Day One and Hana piloted their ship using the perfect synchronization they had spent months perfecting. They moved like water through the defensive lines. The stellar forge drive let them phase through solid matter for brief seconds. They appeared behind enemy ships, fired, vanished, appeared elsewhere. The Kalith fought with centuries of suppressed rage finally unleashed. Dragon ships swarmed sovereignty cruisers like predators. They were individually weaker, but moved with coordinated fury. One ship would draw fire while 10 others attacked from every angle. Human vessels used guerrilla tactics. Hit and run, never staying still, using the black hole's gravity to slingshot around at impossible speeds. The Sovereignty had better shields, but humans had desperation and creativity. The battle raged for 2 hours. Ships died on both sides. Day one watched good beings sacrifice themselves to protect others. Watched Kalith dragons ram their ships into Sovereignty cruisers when their weapons ran dry. Watched human pilots fly suicide runs to take out capital ships. Gite commanded the demolition wing. 20 small ships loaded with explosives. They penetrated the inner defensive ring and began planting charges on the array itself. 14 of the 20 ships were destroyed, but 6 made it through. Charges armed. Gite's voice came through, calm despite the chaos. Detonating in 3, 2, 1. The explosions cascaded across the array's support structure. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to force the emergency protocols. The array began its recalibration sequence. Shields dropping. Core exposed. 15 minutes, all ships focus fire on the core, Hana commanded. This is our window. The fleet converged. Everything they had left. Energy weapons, missiles, railguns, all targeting the same spot. The array's armor held but began to crack. Slowly, too slowly. 10 minutes left. Then 9. The Sovereignty defenders threw everything at them. Ships exploded like stars dying. The humans and their allies kept firing. Day one saw it first through the tactical display. One of the Sovereignty admirals had pulled ships from the defensive line. Not to reinforce, to retreat. Why would they retreat unless they are abandoning the array, he said. They know it is going to fail. They are running, Taemin's voice came through. Father, I am in their network. Uploading the virus now. The Sovereignty leadership's plans. The planetary genocide orders, all of it. Broadcasting to 47 worlds. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched their screens light up with truth. Watched recordings of Sovereignty leaders discussing which of their own member species to exterminate first. Watched evidence of corruption and cruelty that could not be denied or hidden. 5 minutes left on the array. The core was cracking. Almost there. Commander Vextar appeared on an open channel. His ship was damaged but still fighting. You think you won, human? You think destroying one weapon changes anything? We will build another. And another. We will hunt you until your species is extinct. Day one opened a channel back. You still do not understand, Commander. This was never about just destroying your weapon. It was about showing the galaxy what you really are. Look at your fleet. Half of them are not even fighting anymore. They are watching the broadcast. Learning the truth. It was true. Sovereignty ships were going dark. Not destroyed. Shutting down. Some were turning away from the battle entirely. The empire you served is already dead. Day one continued. You just do not know it yet. Because that is what happens when you build power on lies. Eventually the truth breaks through. And once it does, everything collapses. 2 minutes left. The core was fully exposed now. One more push. Hana took control of their ship. I am going in. Full speed. Stellar forge at maximum. We can phase through their remaining defenses and hit the core directly. That will destroy us, Day one said. Yes. Hana looked at him through their bond. But we will save millions. Worth it? He wanted to say no, wanted to find another way. But sometimes there was no other way. Sometimes the only choice was to sacrifice yourself so others could live. His crew had taught him that. Hyunji had taught him that. Wait, Taemin's voice interrupted. Father, I can remote pilot your ship. I have been designing weapon systems for 15 years. I know how to guide a vessel through point defense. Get to an escape pod. Both of you. I will finish this. Taemin, no. Yes, you survived 15 years of hell to find me. Now it is my turn to save you. Go. Daewon wanted to argue, but the core was almost charged again. Shields coming back online in 90 seconds. No time. He and Hana ran to the escape pod. Launched just as Taemin took control of their ship. They watched through the pod's window as their vessel accelerated. Faster than anything in the battle. Phasing through solid matter. A streak of light heading straight for the array's core. Taemin's voice came through one last time.